Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel and to another book review type video. This one is going to be a little different to my previous ones. This is going to be more of a guide on how to read, or just a guide to Abby Jimenez books. And basically I did a poll on my Instagram. If you don't follow me there, please do. I'll put it on the screen. But basically I did a poll asking my followers what I should do, because I've recently gotten back into reading again and I have been loving it. I've been getting through books so quickly, and because of that, and I want to share them with you, I was asking, should I have a separate channel for my book talk videos, or should I just keep it all on one channel? Because I mostly do videos relating to lifestyle, fashion, beauty, some travel, that kind of thing. But it was recommended by friends, my husband, and my followers to keep it all on one channel, and to, instead of talk about one video for 40 minutes, try to talk about more than one in one video and just keep it more brief. So that is what I'm going to do today. And as I said, today we are talking about my new favorite author and my new favorite books, Abby Jimenez. And oh my goodness, I have so much to say. I even have a ton of notes that I wrote on my laptop last night so that I don't forget anything. But yeah, I could not recommend these books more, so let's dive in. And I also just want to say before we get into this that it is going to be a spoiler-free video, so don't worry, you won't have to turn it off. I'm not going to share any spoilers at all. But yeah, you'll have to read to find those out. So I want to start by talking a bit about Abby Jimenez, her writing style, and kind of how I discovered her books. If I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at my laptop, because I don't want to forget anything. But as I said, I got back into reading this year. I'd say in August, I think, was when I really started getting back into it, which I'm so happy about. I was never a big reader, to be honest, but when I was a senior in high school, one of my classes, I guess, was to be in the library, almost like a librarian, but part of the class was to read. So I discovered a few romance books that my teenage self really loved. Looking back, they were a bit cringe, but at the time they were like everything to me, and I really fell in love with reading. When I graduated high school, fell out of it. It's been quite a few years since then, and I'm back into it now. So basically, I first discovered Abby's books through TikTok. Book Talk is a very strong community. It's alive and well, and I was looking for some romance stories to read. Pretty much Part of Your World was recommended, as well as Just for the Summer, because this was her most recent novel to come out. So I saw those and I ended up buying all three. These are her most recent books. She does have 3 other books that she wrote first, but Abby herself recommends that if you want to get into reading her books, that you start with Part of Your World, then go on to Yours Truly, and then read Just for the Summer. And if you like her stories, then she recommends going back to read her other 3 books. I've been watching quite a few interviews with Abby Jimenez just because I've fallen in love with her. And if you don't know, she lives in Minnesota. She is a Food Network champion, and she founded Nadia Cakes in 2007. There are 3 different locations. There are 2 in Minnesota and 1 in California. And I want to get into just why I love her books. Abby's books are so incredibly swoon-worthy. You will literally be giggling and kicking your feet with all of her books. They are just the best. They'll have you laughing out loud and crying, and probably within the same sentence too. I literally am laughing out loud at her books. There are so many moments that I just crack up. Her sense of humor is hilarious. It's just so perfect. And her books actually get funnier and funnier. Like, this one was funny, and this one was funny, but this one, Just for the Summer, was, I think, the funniest one of all. They are just so great. Her books are also very fluffy and romantic, as you'd imagine from a romance writer. But that being said, she does cover some more serious topics in her books as well. They're not just light, fluffy romances all the way through, so that's something to keep in mind, and I'll get into that in a minute as well. But she handles all of the darker topics in a very mature way, and she doesn't take anything too far. I think, at least in my opinion, it's never inappropriate or too much. I think her books are a perfect mixture of light and dark. As I said, I've watched some interviews and just book talks with Abby Jimenez, and something she said that I didn't realize, again, as someone who has not really been a reader throughout my life until now, something I didn't know that she said was that, and I might get this a little bit wrong, it's not going to be word for word, but something about how in a love story, it can still end in kind of tragedy or heartbreak, but a happy ending is not really required for a love story, whereas for romance novels, a happy ending is pretty much guaranteed, which makes my heart really happy. But even just like, despite knowing that, I still panic throughout the books and I'm like, oh my gosh, is it gonna have a happy ending? Like, we're getting close to the ending here, what's going on? But she always comes through for her readers in the end, so there's nothing to worry about there. Though again, I do always worry about that, but I think that's part of what makes romance books exciting, is that you're like, is it gonna be a happy ending though? But you know that it will be. I want to briefly mention as well that her books also do include a little bit of spice. So Abby herself gave her books a low to medium spice ranking, which I think is fair. And so I just wanted to share that. So it's something to be aware of if you're not into that, or, you know, it's not all throughout her books, but it's just something to keep in mind. And with that being said, I would say these books are geared more toward adults. I think there are, you know, especially these days, I don't know, maybe it's just me again getting back into reading, but I do feel like a lot of romance books are probably geared more toward most ages, maybe teenagers and up. But I definitely think that, you know, she has said, I think that, well, I don't know if she's said it, but I'm saying that I think her books are definitely geared more toward adults. Again, some of the topics are just a little heavy, and while yes, they are still romance novels, I just think her writing style is a bit more mature than books for teens would be. But that is just my opinion, I don't know. Speaking of her writing style, I think it is absolutely perfect. I cannot fault these books, you guys, I'm telling you. Like, if there's any criticism on them, I won't take it. I will not listen to it. I just do not believe it. They are literally perfect in my eyes. Something that Abby has said in her interviews is that she writes the way that she speaks, which I think is really important, because I feel like, I mean, as someone who loves to write as well, I completely understand that. You know, if she, like she was saying that, you know, if she finds herself using a word or phrase that she wouldn't personally use herself, she wouldn't include it in her book. And because of this, I think her books are actually really easy to read and easy to follow, in a good and mature way, not in a bad way. But yeah, her writing style is just super easy to understand, and she doesn't use any super big crazy words. She gets her point across in just such a beautiful way. Also, she writes her book boyfriends so incredibly well. They are, again, so swoon-worthy, and there is nothing like a man written by a woman, because women know what women need, and she just gets it every time. All of her book boyfriends are perfection. They literally don't have any flaws, in my opinion. They are the perfect book boyfriends, and they can do no wrong in my eyes. They are perfect. So I know I talked about the reading order for these 3 books, but I want to talk about the order you should read all of her books in. So technically, you would want to start with The Friend Zone, then Happily Ever After Playlist, Life's Too Short, Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and Just for the Summer. So you want to go in that order ideally, but technically her books are standalones, so you do not have to read them in any particular order. I know that also, you know, if you saw one of these trending on TikTok, let's say it was Just for the Summer, which I'm sure many people started with, it's okay, you know, it's not like a rule, but it does make the whole experience more satisfying for the reader if you do read them in order, especially I think these 3. Abby herself recommended that if you want to get into reading her books, you should actually start with Part of Your World, then Yours Truly, and then Just for the Summer. And if you like these, to go back to her first 3 books after. I think these ones are probably higher rated and more popular than her first 3, and I just think the ratings are better. But I might still go back and read her other 3 just because I know if I loved these, I'd probably love those too. But yeah, that is what Abby herself recommends. And one of the biggest reasons of all why you'd want to read these in order, especially her most recent 3, is that all of the characters are from the same universe and same group of friends. So characters from Part of Your World show up in Yours Truly, And then characters from both of these books show up in Just for the Summer. So it just makes your heart so happy as a reader to see what these characters are doing later on. And same with the other characters. It's making them, like having them make a cameo and a little appearance in the more recent books just makes your heart so happy to know that those characters are thriving and doing well. So yeah, Abby has also said that she really enjoys putting Easter eggs in her books. So I'm sure that if you've read her first 3, there's probably things in relation to those as well in these books. So I love that kind of thing. It just, again, it makes my heart so happy. I want to talk about some common tropes in Abby's books as well. So some things that you're going to find in these books, at least right here, are some of the tropes are where the guy falls first, the guy falls harder, enemies to lovers, almost like forbidden love. I don't know if that's a trope. I think it is. Somewhat forbidden love, I guess. Fake dating, and slow burn romance. These are definitely slow burns, and when I say that, I don't mean they're boring in the beginning. I just mean the romance takes a long time to kind of feel complete. I don't know how else you'd describe that, but yeah. And then I want to share also some common themes and trigger warnings. These are some more difficult topics that she covers in these books. So you have things like emotional abuse, verbal abuse, infidelity in a previous relationship, anxiety, panic attacks, PTSD, depression, toxic family relationships, and past childhood neglect. So those are some topics. I'm not saying all of those are in each book, but in these 3 books, those are some topics you are going to find. So if any of those are things that you might find triggering, just keep that in mind before you pick one of these up. I actually want to share with you my order of, like, I guess if I had to rank them, yours truly was my favorite. I'm actually rereading it right now because it was so good. So I would rate this one first, Just for the Summer second, and then Part of Your World third, but I give them all like 5 out of 5 stars, if that tells you anything. So there's not a bad book here. It's just I do have my favorite. But we are going to talk about Part of Your World first. So I'll read a little bit of the back and then just kind of share my own thoughts, but again, I won't give any spoilers. So after a wild bet, Alexis Montgomery has had her world turned upside down. The cause? Daniel Grant, a ridiculously hot carpenter who's 10 years younger than her and as casual as they come. The complete opposite of sophisticated city girl Alexis, and yet their chemistry is undeniable. While her ultra-wealthy parents want her to carry on the family legacy of world-renowned surgeons, Alexis doesn't need glory or fame. She's fine with being a mere ER doctor, and every minute she spends with Daniel and the tight-knit town where he lives, she's discovering what's really important. Yet letting their relationship become anything more than a short-term fling would mean turning her back on her family and giving up the opportunity to help thousands of people. Bringing Daniel into her world is impossible, and yet she can't just give up the joy she's found with him either. With so many differences between them, how can Alexis possibly choose between her world and his? So yes, this is like a small town romance. As I mentioned from the back, Alexis is an ER doctor, and she comes from a very wealthy and well-known family in her area, and she is kind of expected to continue on the family like legacy. And you know, her whole family are like doctors, and so she's kind of, there's a lot that is expected of her in her life. Alexis is also 37. I think, and then Daniel is 28. So yeah, there's like almost a 10-year age difference there, and he's younger, which is quite different as well, I think. So it makes things quite interesting. It makes little things come up. I think the age difference isn't a huge factor in this book, but it is mentioned a couple times. There are other things in relation to their personal lives that kind of, I guess, stop them from being together. But Daniel, yes, he comes from a small town called Waukon, I think is how you pronounce it. Also in Minnesota. They live 2 hours away from each other. And the reason they meet is because Alexis is coming home from a funeral, and she's driving through Waukon, and she runs off the road into a ditch because there was a raccoon in the road. So Daniel is the one who comes to kind of save her from that, and they reconnect later that night. Because she stops in his town, and it kind of just goes on from there. So I think they jump into the physical part of their relationship quite quickly, but actually committing takes a long time. And actually in all of her books, at least these 3, the women are the ones who have a harder time committing than the men do, which is, again, maybe slightly different to what you'd maybe expect. But I'm telling you, the book boyfriends are just they have no flaws. But yeah, so the women in her books have a harder time committing. And again, they're both going through their own personal issues with family, but in a way they kind of, I think, maybe connect over that as well. So honestly, I love this book so, so much. It was so adorable. I read this one in like 2 days, if that tells you anything, so could not recommend Part of Your World more. And now we are on to my favorite, Yours Truly. So we actually meet the main character, Brianna, in Part of Your World. She is Alexis's best friend in that book. So we get to know Brianna a little bit there, but we really get to know her in this book. So I'll read you some of the back, but basically, I don't know, I kind of want to read about it, or like summarize it myself. But basically, Brianna Ortiz is also a doctor. She is also an ER physician. And basically she is divorcing her husband. That's about to be finalized. And her brother is running out of time to find a kidney donor. So there's a lot going on in her life right now. She's very stressed, and also because of her divorce, she wants to like cut men out of her life. She doesn't want commitment. She only wants something really casual. So she's not looking for a boyfriend or a life partner. She doesn't want kids, nothing like that. And then Dr. Jacob Maddox comes into her life. So Dr. Jacob Maddox transfers to her hospital. So he is another ER doctor working with her. And she immediately does not like him because she believes he is kind of there to kind of steal her job, steal her position that she was running for. So she immediately doesn't like him. All the nurses call him Dr. Death. No one seems to like him. He gets off on the wrong foot with everyone, especially Brianna. So she just immediately doesn't like him, but she hears through the grapevine that he is an excellent human being. And she was like, what? How is that possible? He's just terrible. No one likes him. And because he gets off on the wrong foot, he decides to write her a letter apologizing to her and explaining that he has generalized anxiety disorder and social anxiety. So he talks about how that kind of stops him from saying the right things sometimes, and he has a problem gauging social cues. So he kind of writes her this beautiful letter, and immediately she feels terrible. She feels like she was the mean girl and she treated him terribly. And from that point on, they begin writing letters back and forth, hence the name Yours Truly. So they begin writing each other these letters, and they very quickly become friends. They start having lunch together, and I won't give away something that might even be on the back of this book because it just seems like kind of a spoiler, so I won't mention it. But basically he does something really amazing for her and her family, and she wants to kind of return the favor and help him in any way possible. So the fake dating trope is strong in this one, but as you'd imagine, it's a romance, so the fake dating might turn into something a bit more real. So I think that's all I can really say about this book, but again, it's another slow burn. It's beautiful. It's just my favorite, and Jacob is my favorite book boyfriend of her books, and probably in the book world right now. He is just, he's such like a sweetheart. He is such a pure soul, and like I want to protect him with all my heart. I love him. He's just, again, I think also because of his anxiety and everything, I just want to hold him. I feel so bad. But yeah, I love them together, and this book is definitely my favorite of the three. And finally, we have Just for the Summer. So this one, like I said, is hilarious. Probably the funniest of all of them. Even the whole like concept of this book, it just cracks me up. So Justin has a curse. So, by the way, Justin in this book is also, I believe he's just in Yours Truly. So there's another connection there. Justin is Benny's best friend. Benny is Brianna's brother. So there is a connection, which I love. So Justin has a curse, and thanks to a Reddit thread, it's now all over the internet. Every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate the second they break up. When a woman slides into his DMs with the same problem, they come up with a plan. They'll date, break up, and cancel out each other's curses. Emma hadn't planned that her next assignment as a traveling nurse would be in Minnesota, but she and her best friend agree that dating Justin is too good an opportunity to pass up, especially when they get to rent an adorable cottage on a private island. And yeah, so basically it's supposed to be like a quick fling, just for the summer, but I might kind of leave it at that. I don't want to read too much, basically. But they end up fake dating. It's another fake dating thing, which I think that's like one of my favorite tropes in romance books, fake dating, because you know it always ends up being something more. But basically, yes, this book follows Emma and Justin, and yeah, it's a really beautiful story. So instead of going to Hawaii like Emma and her friend Maddie planned as traveling nurses, they end up going to Minnesota because Emma and Justin want to fake date to see if they can cancel out their curse that they both have. So basically they set up a plan to have like a certain amount of dates, they need to kiss, they need to do certain things in order for the curse to be broken. Or at least, again, they're kind of joking about this, but they also just want to see if it works. They immediately have such a strong connection. They go on these dates, but each date they have is almost, I don't want to say ruined, but something always happens in relation to their families. And there is a strong, I guess, I don't know what you'd call it, but basically there is a really toxic family relationship in this book. It's very strong in this one, so keep that in mind. But both of their families have something difficult going on, and so again, it kind of stops them from being able to make their relationship work for real. So again, it's the fake dating. It's a beautiful story. Again, quite heartbreaking as all of her books are, but she always comes through, like I said, so don't worry. It's not going to leave you in tears at the end, but tears were definitely shed, I'm telling you that. It's beautiful, and I think all of her books definitely have deeper meanings behind them. Again, they're not just fluffy, silly romances. They really are genuinely beautiful stories. They're beautifully told, and you know, your heart will be put back together in the end. But yeah, that is just for the summer. It's a lovely read. So as I said, I finished Part of Your World in 2 days. Yours truly I finished in 1 day. This one took me slightly longer just because I was a bit busy. It took me maybe 2 to 3 days, but yeah, so I loved this one as well. And just quickly, I want to mention that Abby has a new book coming out on April 1st, 2025 called Say You'll Remember Me, which I think is a nod to Taylor Swift. And that one centers around a character named Samantha, who actually makes a very brief, like, she mentions her very briefly in this book. So that book is going to be about her, and I believe his name is Xavier, is the male character. So I cannot wait for that. I can't believe I have to wait until April 1st, but it's something to look forward to. But in the meantime, if you subscribe to Abby's mailing list from her website, you will receive an extra chapter of Part of Your World. It's actually, the chapter technically comes before this book. So I guess if you do want to start reading her books, you can start with that. So subscribe to her mailing list. And something called The Situationship has just come out, which is a very short story in relation to Doug, which is a character from this book as well. So yeah, definitely sign up to her newsletter to be able to read those things, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of content from her in relation to Say You'll Remember Me. The cover was just announced recently, and I cannot wait to read it. So more romance from Abby Jimenez to come soon. But I think for now, that is all I want to say. I could not recommend these books more. I'm telling you, please read them. Let me know what you think. Comment below if you've read them. And yeah, please like the video, subscribe, and I cannot wait to talk more books with you very soon. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.